Welcome everyone to JCTV, Mid-Missouri Art News, supported by many art enthusiasts throughout the state and the United States for that matter. We're getting a lot of viewership now on YouTube. We're coming to you almost live from the capital city of Jefferson City, Missouri. I'm your host, Rick Jey, with special guests today, photographer LLoyd Grotjan and wife Potter Ann Grotjan. Please join me in welcoming Mr. LLoyd Grotjan, beg your pardon, and Mrs. Ann Grotjan to JCTV, Spotlight on the Arts.
Hi.
Nice to have you with us.
Nice to be here.
Well, LLoyd, if I may call you by your first name,
Sure.
Please tell us a little bit about you and those highlights of your life that best describe LLoyd Grotjan.
All right. I'd say, basically, I just have real interest in things, curious, like to observe things, especially outdoors. So from an early age, I like to get outside and hike around and look at things and try and kind of figure out how they worked. For a long time, I was interested in taxonomy, trying to know the names of everything. But eventually, it was like, I don't have to know the name of something to appreciate it, you know.
Sure.
So I kind of drifted away from that and got into just trying to capture things to share with people.
Capture things by
Photography.
Photography,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
That's the initial way.
LLoyd is a well-known photographer in the area, and his photography work really speak well for him. We'll be looking more into that in the second segment, where you'll actually take a look at some of his works. Well, now I'd love to turn to Ann, if I may call you by your first name, Ann. Please tell us a little bit about you and those highlights of your life that best describe Ann Grotjan.
Well, I grew up in a very large family. Probably for my parents' sanity, we were outside a lot, and we explored nature. We lived in the country and went on walks and looked at things, and that translated into joining scout group when I was older, and we had a high adventure scout group, and really loved nature, but at the same time I liked art too, so I just kind of transgressed from nature art lover into how I'm going to be an artist, and I didn't know how that was going to be, but eventually figured that out. Met LLoyd and married him fairly young, and we started a life together as artists. Eventually we had children and have a couple of beautiful daughters, and have just kept our art going throughout our life. And
it sounds like you both had that connection, nature connection, I guess.
Yeah,
we did.
So that was an excellent platform to establish a friendship, I guess, and a relationship, and later on in life and children. Now, would you like to say hi to those beautiful daughters?
Sure. We have a beautiful daughter, Savannah, our oldest one, who's in Springfield going to school.
Excellent.
Going to college, and our younger daughter is Sonia, and she's a 6th grader in middle school.
Excellent.
So.
And well, Ann, let's dig a little deeper. Can you share with us how or when you were first really inspired to become a potter?
I would say that happened in college. I knew I wanted to be an artist, like I said before, and I started my degree in commercial art. And in my 2nd year of college, I decided to change my major, and there were reasons for that. I was in commercial art because people told me that's what you needed to be in to make a living as an artist, and I liked it okay, but there was a dissonance. I didn't like having to promote pieces that maybe I didn't believe in as a commercial artist. At the same time, I was taking pottery and sculpture, and I really enjoyed those. My father passed away fairly young, and I decided if you never know when you're going to go, so
That's right.
be happy with what you're doing instead of doing what you think you should do. So I changed my major to pottery and sculpture at that point.
That's a great life philosophy. Do what you feel like doing, and as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else, then
Do what you have a
follow your
passion
own
for.
path.
Yeah.
Everyone has two pockets to reach in, and or different paths to take in life as you have to make those decisions. Sometimes they don't seem right at the moment, but you're surprised also at some point what really comes out of that. So that's an excellent story, and the basis for your inspiration, I can identify with that. I'm sure the viewers can too. Well, Lloyd, please tell us when you and how you were first inspired to become a photographer.
Because there's just something about if I observe something, I wanted to be able to, to translate that to another person, to share the experience. And so photography was a way that, if I saw something, I could capture it, and then I could show that to somebody else, and maybe they'd feel the same enthusiasm that I had for that particular thing. I'd started with birds mostly. I was a young ornithologist, kind of a nerd who would belong to the Audubon Society, the local River Bluffs Audubon chapter, and we'd go birding, and then it was just like, ooh, I wish I could get a really close picture of that, So I got a camera, and I worked for local photographers. Another thing, I was really into spelunking, going caving, exploring caves. And once I got into a dark room, it was just like, it was kind of, it was dark and the water was running. It was very similar. So I really liked to spend time in the dark room printing stuff, and kind of that old magic that kind of was, watching your stuff develop and
through the chemicals.
Things. Yeah.
Well, your sensitivity to nature is definitely recognizable. I see your enthusiasm just as you're sharing your past with us, and how you were inspired. So I'm hoping that you have inspired some of our guests, or shall we say our viewers, as we cover that. I started with the Brownie Hawkeye. I can identify that, waiting for the film to come back. And then later on in Japan, I picked up an Asai Pentax camera and extended my love of photography, just wanting to capture and share. So I can identify with that also. Well, Lloyd, not only are you talented with the camera, but as a musician, and you also have the business known as Full Spectrum Photo and Audio in Jefferson City, Missouri. So it does show that you're multi-talented. And in the second segment, we'll discuss those talents and take an in-depth look into your dedication, Ann's dedication to each of your arts. The first potter on the program, Ann Grotjan. So that's your support, your supportive wife. It looks like it works both ways.
Definitely.
Yes.
Excellent. I love to see that.
Does.
And I love to see the professional end of the Mrs. Grotjan. So we'll be right back. We're going to take a break, and we'll have more as Ann talks more about her love of being a potter. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
911, where's your emergency?
Please, send help.
Tell me what happened?
I think he's dead. Please, he was shot.
Okay, what's going on right now?
I think he needs help. Send help.
Being a parent can be challenging. During stressful times, stay calm and take deep breaths to relax before handling hectic situations. When stress heats up, keep your cool. Parent with Patience. Children's Trust Fund of Missouri. Strong families, safe kids.
Welcome back to Spotlight on the Arts here at JCTV in Jefferson City, Missouri. Join me, if you will, in continuing our conversation with professional photographer, musician, and business owner LLoyd Grotjan and Ann Grotjan, the first potter on the program with a potter story on JCTV here, Spotlight on the Arts. I'm your host, Rick Jey. Mr. and Mrs. Grotjan make their home in the beautiful city of California, Missouri. So welcome back, LLoyd and Ann. I now first turn to Ann with her story for the viewers as a potter. In today's world of advancement, you represent one of the oldest forms, I would say, maybe going back even to the days of the ancient ones. I felt the feel of clay in my own hands at one point, and so maybe can identify a little bit with you. Some of the pleasure you might feel when you work with the clay, the moisture, content, what have you. Can you give us an overview of your life as a potter as it stands now?
Well, as I talked about briefly before the break, I always knew I wanted to be an artist, and got my degree in pottery and sculpture, and then kind of ironically, I had started my degree in commercial art, finished my degree in sculpture and pottery, and ironically I got a first job in commercial art. But it was a job at the Missouri Department of Conservation, doing illustrative work and paste up and layout, and it was kind of nature oriented, so it fit me in that sense, and so it was kind of outdoor related as well. And I enjoyed my work there with the department, and it also enabled me to make enough money to build a pottery studio so that I could then do what I truly loved to do. So that was kind of a pathway to that.
I see.
Getting to where I had a place to do my pottery, because it's a messy profession. I didn't want it to be necessarily in my house. Always wanted it to be a separate studio where I could get away. So built a pottery studio with the help of my husband, and started making the pottery and finding a market for it, doing art shows and such. And I love nature, so then it was like, how do I incorporate my love of nature into my artwork? And it was just a natural for me to do that, and I started with carving animals around the pieces, doing different decorative motifs on the pieces of pottery, and it just kind of progressed to where nature was ever present, and there was always an inspiration for pieces with nature. I love to garden.
I see, yes.
I love to identify wildflowers and natural ecosystems, and so the two just naturally blended together. I like to work with my hands in the dirt when I garden. I go to my pottery studio, get my hands in the clay. It's very tactile.
I guess.
I love
that
it a
gives
lot.
you a license to get your fingernails full of dirt and hands.
Yeah, I have a daughter who said, I work very hard keeping my fingernails clean. And I said, I work very hard keeping my fingernails dirty. And I do. So.
Well, I want to thank you both, you and LLoyd, for being part of my show partnership with the Run Center here this past April through June. So thank you.
You're welcome.
On that basis. Well, working with different types of medium, what's your favorite? Clay, bronze,
well, I did.
stone?
Yeah, I worked with a lot of different types of media in college and a little bit afterwards too. Stoneware is my favorite now because it's accessible, it's forgivable. I can change it, move it, and shape it into what I need to express myself without, it's very forgiving. So it is my favorite media at this point. Not to say I won't ever do other types of sculpture and stuff, but right now this is what I have access to, and I haven't run out of ideas yet. So
your work speaks well for itself. Now, you have a few pieces here on the table. I'm sure a few of them are your favorites. So, can you give us a description of your favorites, what they maybe mean to you, what inspired you on a couple of the pieces?
Okay.
I know the intricate cut designing and the more or less formulation of each item is just outstanding. So go ahead and take it from there.
Well, this is a piece, and it's called Prairie Fire. And like I was saying before, I really like native landscapes. This one represents a prairie. I've got the native grasses actually rolled into the clay, and then I have carved it, sculpted the top to represent flame. And fire is very integral to a healthy prairie. So what this piece represents is fire going through the prairie grasses is what I was, I was going for on that. That's one of my favorite
So there's more
series.
to that than just an art piece. There's a basis and an explanation of what's built into the piece. And I see your love of birds is represented.
Lloyd mentioned earlier that he was a birder, and he kind of brought me into that. One of our first dates was going on an Audubon field trip to watch prairie chickens on a lek in a prairie where they were doing their mating ritual. And we had to get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning to drive down to this prairie. So he got me into birding too, and this is a sculpture of a nuthatch. Now this is sculpted in stoneware clay.
I see.
And I left the painting on the nuthatch itself not a whole lot of realism. I wanted it to be somewhat abstract to contrast against the very realistic way that I treated the bark on this part of the sculpture.
You did justice to the nuthatcher. In the form that.
Well, thank you. So that's what I was going for there. And then you see an assortment of functional pottery that is, you can use it in your kitchen. It's very user-friendly but decorative at the same time. So I go for pieces that a customer can appreciate as an art piece, but if they want to take it and use it in their kitchen, it's food safe, it's dishwasher safe, you can use it, you can enjoy it. And some of the pieces are just, your coffee mug, but maybe it's your favorite one that you can look at. And if you can notice, there's the leaves actually rolled into the clay. So now when I go on a hike or something, I'm always looking at nature. I'm looking at the leaves. I say, ooh, would that be a good leaf that you can roll in the clay? Because some of these are the actual leaves rolled into the clay.
The actual leaves rolled into the clay as it's still wet.
Yes. Now some of them, like the lizards, I've carved those into the clay, and that's, I use the vessel as kind of a canvas for my picture animal that I want to represent. But the detail that you can pick up on a real leaf is just phenomenal. And
that is phenomenal.
It's kind of like a fast fossil, if you will.
There you go, creating your own fossil image as you go. Well, it's a great presentation. Like I say, your art works just really speak well of your abilities. So I want to thank you. Do you have a Potter contact link that you'd like to share with the viewers in case they have an interest in looking more into your work?
My husband and I share a website, and it's called Au Naturel. I should probably spell it. It's AWENATUREL.com. And that website shows not only my pottery, but also Lloyd's photography and music as well. So we share a website.
Well, thank you once again. Now let's turn to Mr. Grotjan, LLoyd Grotjan, as he presents a look into his photography and how he takes music from the musician sense, incorporates that into his photography work, his professionalism. So we'll now turn to Mr. Grotjan. LLoyd, your talents are numerous, and each speaks well of your dedication to each. Can you share with the viewers the paths you have taken to enhance your talents as a professional photographer, musician, songwriter, producer, etc.?
Sure. I was, like I said earlier, interested in photography first. I worked for some studios
I see.
and photographers, I think, this is a generalization, but are not particularly good businessmen a lot of times. And each one I would work for would close up shop, and each one was like, do you want to sell some of this stuff or try? Anyways, so I just kind of, I was going to be a wildlife biologist, but I ended up with a bunch of photography equipment, and we had some contracts for jobs and stuff. So I kind of just ended up being a photographer, not profession, you know, as a source of income, and that wasn't the plan. But I enjoy it, and it was really neat. It's changed so much. It's just incredible, you know, in my lifetime, how much it's changed, and to try and stay current with that has been pretty much of a challenge. But at the same time, really interesting, because all the things I used to, I'd be like, boy, if I could just do that, you know, if we could just do this. And now all of those wishes, dreams that I used to have are possible.
Are available.
Yeah.
Yes. I've thought in that same sense also on occasion. It could be much easier if we could just do this, and now it's there, so it's great. Now, how about you as a musician? I know you do your own producing on some of your music. You write your music. How did you get started as a musician?
I always liked music, and as a kid, my generation, I liked rock and roll music, so so I played in garage bands. We had bands and would play, but at some point in time, I heard some kind of outdoorsy, there was a program called Hearts of Space, and I heard this music, and it was like kind of the opposite. It was real laid back and melodic and interesting. So it was like there wasn't really anybody who was interested. I mean, you know, there were hundreds of drummers and guitar players and stuff you could play with, but to find somebody who wanted to, you know, take nature sounds and put them into music or with music was, so I just kind of did it on my own, and I built a little studio and started recording. I take ambient sounds and then like either write a song to that, like to a place, you know, like to a prairie or cave or something so like that.
Brings the viewer into that photo, what have you. Well, tell us a little bit about those photographs online, published in magazines. You have a lot of that in front of you. Outdoor Life, the Smithsonian, Wildlife Art, Images of Missouri, exhibits local and international. So I'll just turn it over to you. Please share with the viewers what you can about your publishing.
Some of the first things were the Smithsonian pictures were pictures inside the Capitol of the, so with the Capitol here had a lot of, anyways, have tons of pictures of the Capitol and different things. So that's a big, anyway, some of my first publications were those. So like the Smithsonian has been stuff in the House Lounge. I've taken a series of pictures and put those together. They recently auctioned one to raise money for the renovation of the Capitol, and that picture raised like $29,000 was what was, I was just like, this is real. Anyways, but then, you know, the excitement, first, here's my very first cover picture, this little tiny picture. But then later, entire covers and magazines. Which one? This is a good book on Missouri. This is Images of Missouri. Yes. Yeah, I could leave these up on the. Then here's another Capitol book that Bob Pretty and Jeffrey Ball wrote. Most of the Jeff City people will be quite familiar with this.
You spoke to Bob Pretty. Bob Pretty is coming to the show in a couple months.
Cool.
So he has all this history. I can see where he could be a big part of it as the president of the Historical Society of Missouri. So you're also featured. And your CDs.
Yeah,
as an example of your music.
This is the first CD I made. It was, it's all outdoor ambient things with, and the music is all acoustic instruments, pretty much all. But there's also samples of anyways, it's very natural. It's all instrumental, acoustic. Then this is the second one. This one, you know, there's a lot of talk now, if you make art, you have to ship it, like get it out there. You know, a lot of people make stuff where they'll create things and you know, it'll just be around their house or, you know, friends or stuff. So it's like, okay, so I shipped those out to all kinds of places, and I got an inquiry about one of the songs on here, and it got picked up by an international contemporary dance group, Momix, and it went all around the world. And every performance I get royalties from, and every performance the name of the song and my information was in there. So with music now, there's a lot of content, you know, and like the odds of somebody finding your song or something's pretty slim. So that actually turned into a way that I wasn't just out there in a sea of other instrumentals.
That's on Momix. Now, these are all available through your collective called All Natural.
And I mean, all of these are can be purchased through Amazon or Apple iTunes. There's songs from both of these CDs are on Sirius XM radio. And the other day, somebody said, I've got your playlist. I'm not sure what a playlist is, but if you get enough listens, they'll make a playlist and base, and you can just go check out the LLoyd Grotjan playlist, and they'll recommend other music in that that's similar to that. Anyways, so that was cool.
Well, do you have a website then again, a phone number or email address where you'd like to, where the viewers could get a hold of you?
There's our All Natural site, which is, as Ann said, AWENATUR, and it's EL, All Natural, like nature with an L.com. There's also for the specifically kind of music-wise, and for my performances, because I do multimedia performances, there's LLoydGrotjan.com, which is just my name.com. Then I also have Full Spectrum Photo Audio.com, which is photography and a lot of the more commercial type work that we do. We do a lot now of restoration of old things, documenting old images and stuff like that. So kind of preserving what was taken with film, digitizing that and preserving that.
Preserving. On behalf of JCTV Mid-Missouri Art News, I want to thank LLoyd and Ann Grotjan for sharing all that you have today on the Spotlight on the Arts. It has been an interview that I've been looking forward to for some time now. So thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome. It was our pleasure.
Yeah.
And LLoyd, I understand you have an exhibit before we close. Would you like to invite the viewers to an exhibit that you have actually now?
Yeah, there's exhibited photographs I have at the Missouri River Regional Library here in Jefferson City. It's up through the month of October.
Excellent. Well, hopefully we'll have time to to view that. I know I'll take that in and invite the guest also. Thanks once again for being my guest today. I look forward to seeing the final.
All right.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. My next guest on Spotlight on the Arts will be Dave Carter of Cape Girardeau, Missouri, who is commissioned to do the mills across Missouri. It's now on exhibition across the state and more. That taping is scheduled for November 7th. Well, thank you, JCTV producer Gloria Enlow and crew, and thank you, our viewers, for watching. Look for more Mid-Missouri art news and Spotlight on the Arts right here on JCTV. And don't forget YouTube. I'm Rick Jey saying thanks for viewing.